Hey guys, welcome back. In this particular video, we're going to be taking a look at how to configure BGP on your ASA firewall. There are subtle things that are different running BGP on the firewall, but other than that, it's pretty much the same. Again, just the same way that you ran it on a router. So what are the different things over here? We'll be taking a look at how to configure BGP on the ASA firewall, the configuration commands associated with it, just like we have been doing with the other protocols. The BGP authentication, this is identical on both sides. So authentication, whether it's on a router for BGP or authentication of BGP on an ASA firewall, the command is based on the neighbor command. So it's pretty much the same. I have added a new slide over here for redistribution because I'm going to have my internal network run OSPF and the outside run BGP. Some verification commands, and at the end we will do the lab to implement what we've learned in this particular video. So to get started, how do I configure BGP? You do have the ability to run BGP on the ASA as well. It did start towards the end, towards 9.6. It was not there in the initial 9x versions of the ASA firewall. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do it. Which version of of the ASA firewall are you running? If you're running an older 9x version like 9.1, it's probably not there. BGP is a protocol that generally is used by your company to communicate to another remote company, like from one ISP to the other, or maybe you are a company that is doing multi-homing, where you do want to learn the routes from two different ISPs and make a decision on which route which ISP would you prefer for a particular route. So for example, I am connected to two different ISPs which are connected to each other through the backbone. So this is ISP1 and I have ISP2. This type of setup is known as a multi-home setup. In this case, my ASA firewall has connectivity towards both the ISPs, although this is my primary ISP. So I'll prefer this for most of the routes, but there are certain routes that I want to use this particular ISP for, so I can run BGP over here in a multi-homed environment. Other than that, generally, BGP is run between ISPs on the internet. This type of setup is called multi-homed. So my objective over here is to show you how would you run BGP on the ASA firewall to communicate to the ISP. So let's get started with that. It is generally between the ISPs, although some companies can use it to communicate to the ISPs. That's a multi-homed environment that I talked about. The purpose of BGP is to advertise the internal routes that are directly connected or learned via an IGP to the external neighbors. What that basically means is BGP is not just used for advertising directly connected interfaces. So let's say this is your autonomous system, this is your company, maybe this is your ISP. I'll be running some type of IGP internally, which my edge router will also be running and learning those routes from all over the autonomous system within your company and learning it on the edge router. Once I learn the route, it's in my routing table. As long as the route is in the routing table, whether it's directly connected or I have learned it through an IGP, I have the ability to advertise it to a BGP neighbor in another autonomous system. So let's say this is autonomous system 1000, I'm 2000. I do have the ability to take a route that is in my routing table and advertise it externally. So any internal route, not just a directly connected route, which is the case with an IGP. That's one of the differences between BGP and IGP. BGP is meant to advertise your internal routes, whether they're connected to each other or connected to that particular router or learned from another router. I can advertise it externally. So that was this part over here. BGP is a unicast-based protocol. That means I need to define who my neighbor is. So for example, over here I'm saying I'm in AS 100, my neighbor is 20.2, whose remote AS is 200. So these are the two parameters that I need to provide to establish a neighbor relationship towards my remote neighbor. This AS number is the AS number that has been assigned to me by IANA or by my ISP, which in turn will get it from IANA. All right. So what are the configuration commands? Network command in BGP is used to advertise internal networks. We just talked about it, not just the directly connected network. Any route that is in my routing table can be advertised to my external neighbor. Now, how do I advertise it? Again, using the network command. When I advertise using the network command, you need to be careful, because if you specify 10.0.0.0 in your normal IGP, it would basically mean enable it on all the interfaces that start with 10. In BGP, this basically means I want to advertise a network 10 with a mask of 8. If I had my networks that I learned as 10.1.1.0/24 and 10.1.2.0/24, this network statement will not do it. I would need to specify, because these are subnets, I would need to specify the mask specifically, explicitly. So I would need to say network 10.1.1.0 followed by the keyword mask and the mask. All right, 10.1.2.0 with the same mask. 10.0.0.0 will not suffice for that, because 10.0.0.0, I could say 10.0.0.0, that basically means a default mask of 255.0.0.0, which is not what this is. So again, let me reiterate that. For example, network 10 will only advertise a network 10.0.0/8. I don't have 10.0.0/8, specifically 10.0.0/8. I have 10.1.1.0.24, and 10.1.1.0.24 would require this particular network statement to advertise it. All right. How do I do it on the ASA firewall? On the router, I would just have done router BGP 100. Directly go ahead and specify the neighbor. You don't need to activate a neighbor. I would have done 192.1.20.10, remote AS, let's say 200. And that would be it. And then the network statement. I don't need to activate it. I don't need to go into an address family IPv4 unicast to do that. But on the ASA, not only do I need to go into my address family IPv4 unicast, because I do have an IPv6 version of BGP that I can also run. But besides that, I need to activate the neighbor for it. So I would need to do remote AS and activate before I do the network statement. So subtle differences in the way you run BGP on the ASA firewall, some things that you do need to take care of. Authentication, though, is very simple. Authentication, whether it's on a router or on a firewall, it's exactly the same. So under the router BGP statement, after your neighbor command has been configured, for the remote AS, you specify the neighbor again with the keyword password. The password automatically sets the authentication is always MD5. There's no other choice that you have. So even when you say password Cisco 123, it automatically, you need to know it is only one type of authentication, which is MD5. You are doing MD5 authentication. All right, per neighbor basis. So if you do want to authenticate, per neighbor. Now this is a typical configuration of BGP on a router. Neighbor 20.10 with a password, network 10.2.2.0 mask or 255.255.255.0. I'm advertising these two networks. When I don't specify the mask, it assumes the default mask. This is a class C network, so its default mask is 24. So I don't need to specify the mask if that's what the network in my routing table is. On router 2, those are the two networks. They're both class networks, so I don't need to specify the mask for that. But over here, I need to go under the address family. This one is okay. This is the same. I do need to put the activate command, and then the password is exactly the same. If I had the network statement, it would be identical to the way I would have done it on the router. So if I had, let's say 10.10.10.0, I want to advertise mask 255, 255, 255.0. So you would do it exactly like that. Done? Now the redistribution part of it. I would have run some type of IGP in my internal network. So what I want to do is I want to take those routes that I've learned in my IGP. In my case, let me go to my diagram over here. In my case, I would have run, I am still running OSPF over here. I'm still running OSPF over here. I'm still running OSPF over here. So what I would have done is I would learn all these routes as OSPF. I want to run BGP over here between R2 and the ASA firewall. What I want to do is all the routes that I learned as OSPF routes, internal routes, I want to advertise them to R2, my BGP router. And that is done through this process known as redistribution. Redistribute takes a route, learned from one routing protocol, and sends it to another. So I'll take the OSPF routes and send them into what? OSPF routes into BGP, and also I'm going to redistribute BGP routes, take the routes that I learned from BGP and redistribute them into OSPF. This is also known as mutual route redistribution. We'll be doing that over here so that we can get the routes from router 2, which are the 199 and 200 routes, propagated to my internal routers, which are router 1, 3, and 4. So again, router BGP, this is on the ASA firewall that I'm going to do the redistribution because this is the one that's running both routing protocols. So over here, router BGP 100, address family IPv4 unicast, underneath there, redistribute OSPF 1. So that basically means any route that I learned from OSPF 1, send it into BGP 100. And then in terms of OSPF, I'll go to OSPF and say any routes that I learned from BGP 100, redistribute that into OSPF. What is this keyword subnets? When you do redistribution into OSPF, by default, it will only redistribute major networks. So if I had any type of subnets, let's say I had the 10.220/24 network, which is a subnet, that would not get redistributed. 199.110, which is a major network, would have gotten redistributed. So if I want this 10.2.2 network to get redistributed as well, I would use the keyword subnet over there. Everybody good with this? So with this in mind, we'll do the implementation. What are my verification commands? Same things. I'll do router over here again. Show route shows the routing table, ping to verify connectivity. So this is my topology over here, my objective. The lab builds on the OSPF lab that we did. Disable OSPF just between ASA and router 2. Run BGP instead. So I'm still going to run OSPF between the ASA and R1, R3, and R4. I'm going to disable it between R2 and the ASA. Instead, I'm going to run BGP. Let's first disable it. How do I disable it? On router 2, no router OSPF. Got rid of it. On the ASA firewall, if you take a look at your router BGP, router OSPF 1, I'll take this network, the 10 network, and know it. I disable it. So I'm no longer running OSPF with R2. I'm going to run BGP instead. So the requirement again, R2 should be in AS100 and our ASA in AS100. R2 in AS200, ASA in 100. Advertise all the loopbacks on R2 in BGP. Mutually redistribute BGP and OSPF on the ASA. We'll do it one step at a time. Let's do it on router 2. Router 2 says enable it in OSPF in AS200 and advertise all my loopbacks, which is 10.220, 199, and 200. While I'm at it, I'm going to configure MD5 authentication with the key of Cisco 555 between ASA and R2. So that one I'll do together. So let's go to router 2 now. So router BGP 200, that's my AS. Neighbor 20.10, remote AS is 100. Neighbor, I want to authenticate it. 20.10, password is Cisco 555. And my local interfaces, show IP route connected is a better command over here. My loopbacks are 10.220 with a mask of 24. So this is not your normal mask. This is a subnet. So 10.220. If it's a subnet, I do need to specify the mask. 199.110/24. Class C with a Class C mask. It's a major network. This is good enough. Again, for 200, Class C with a Class C mask. This is good enough. So if you take a look at your router BGP command over here, I've enabled the networks, 3 networks. The neighbor is 20.10, remote AS is 100. Neighbor 20.10 with the password is Cisco 555. Now, how do I do the same thing on the ASA to get it up and running? Router BGP 100, address family, IPv4, unicast, neighbor 20.2, remote AS is 200, neighbor 20.2, password is Cisco 555. And now did I need to do any advertisements? No, that's good enough. So let's see if it comes up. If it does come up, I should learn those routes in my routing table through BGP. BGP is a little slow, so give it some time to come up. And there you go, BGP is up. So if I take a look at my BGP table over here, show IP BGP, shows me my local routes, 10.2.20, 199, and 200. On the ASA, if I do show route BGP, I should see the 10.2, the 199, and 200 learned via 20.2 through BGP. So my BGP is running between the ASA and the router now. My next thing, so at this point, let's see what we've done. We've done this. Router 2 should be in AS200, ASA and AS100. Done. Advertise all the loopbacks on R2. Done. We've done the authentication. The only thing that we need to do is mutual redistribution. Let's do a before and after. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my routing table on R1. Show IP route OSPF because it's going to learn the routes OSPF. Although the ASA will learn it through BGP, it will redistribute that as an OSPF external route. So I don't see 10.2, I don't see 199 or 200. So at this time, I don't see the routes over here. Same thing should happen over here. Show IP route OSPF. I see 10. These are the routes from router 1. I don't see 10.2, 199, or 200. 4 would have the same type of setup. No 10.2, no 199, no 200. Because I haven't done the redistribution. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm in BGP right now. So what I'm going to do is, and one more thing. Router 2, show IP route, BGP. I don't have any BGP routes because ASA did not advertise anything to me. So what I'll do is I'll redistribute OSPF 1 into BGP. So if you take a look at your BGP configuration right now, it basically is redistributing what? OSPF 1 into BGP. So if we go to router 2 now, it should learn those routes from BGP. 10.1, 10.3, 10.4, 10.10. All those routes are now propagated into BGP. Now, at the same time, I have not redistributed BGP into OSPF. How do I know that? Show run router OSPF. It does not have any redistribution. So I'll go into OSPF and say, hey, listen, I want you to redistribute any routes that I learned from BGP 100 using the keyword subnets. That allows us the ability to get that 10.2 route as well. So once I do that, I should go to router 1 on the inside and now learn these routes, and you'll see them as external routes. Any redistributed routes in OSPF will show up as external routes. So there you go. Router 1 is seeing the external routes. Router 3 should see them as external routes, and router 4 should see them as external routes. So I have full connectivity right now between the different devices. But that was done via redistribution, the mutual redistribution that I did on the ASA. In terms of the configs, let's recap them. Running BGP on the ASA, router BGP 100, address family IPv4 unicast, enabled my neighbor with 20.2, which is router 2, activated. Neighbor 20.2, password is this one, so I want to do authentication, and then I redistributed OSPF 1 into it. In terms of this guy, I disabled 20.0 for OSPF. Instead, I ran BGP and redistributed BGP into OSPF. On router 2, router BGP 200, this is my neighbor, this is my password, and these are the networks that I wanted to inject into BGP, which I did. Router 3 and router 4, I did not do any config, or 1 for that matter, so there's no config for it. In terms of testing it, let's verify the pings. I should still maintain reachability from the ASA towards that 199, 110, 111 network, or the 200 network, or for that matter, the 10.2 network. So everything is working properly. So that basically sets up your BGP between an ASA firewall and a remote router. Or basically, how do you configure BGP on an ASA firewall? Subtle differences, but those are there for you guys to see. That concludes the routing portion of the ASA firewall. Hope you guys had a good time. See you guys in the next video.